What is up, fight fans? Good morning and welcome to MMA Weekly's UFC Fallout. A lot to talk about on the show here today. We are here every Monday morning getting you going at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. I have Steve Harvey in my head. You got to get up at 5 a.m. The West Coast start, the East Coast, it's 12 noon by the time. But guess what? It's lunchtime on the East Coast, Jeff. It's starting time on the West Coast if you're lazy and you start work at 9. It's starting time. Here we are. MMA Weekly's UFC Fallout live on the Batshit Nuts edition, which is what we'll call this because that's what we're going to talk about. People who are batshit nuts. Good morning, man.
Good morning. Yeah, man, we got the results from the UFC. Some crazy things happened. KO of the year candidate. This event this weekend, losing fights left and right. Diego Sanchez being not only removed from the fight, being removed from the UFC roster. And then going public, he's gone public with multiple videos, and then he put out a video, kind of a rambling video of himself. Crazy things in the world of mixed martial arts right now, Jim. Crazy thing. UFC announcing dates. They're coming to Glendale, full crowd in your neck of the woods.
Right in my backyard, buddy.
Yeah, we're opening things up again. So there's another place. It's kind of I'm putting check marks by so we can go to Florida, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada right now. More states to follow.
Man, I'll tell you what. Yeah, it is. I mean, you're going to see, and the UFC is not sold out in Arizona yet. They didn't sell out as fast as they did Jacksonville or Houston or Vegas, but they are charging $900 a seat minimum in the lower bowl at the arena for UFC 263 in Glendale, Arizona. Dana's been teasing the Arizona thing, Jeff, for a few weeks. All I know is this, man. The last two times the UFC was in Arizona, they were great card. All three of them, actually. The first one I saw Stipe and JDS, if you remember that one, and a fight broke out in the crowd. Nate Diaz was on that card. There's a bunch of good fights on that card. And, of course, you see Diego Sanchez there. We're going to talk about Diego and Josh Fabia in a minute, and I have some good insight on Diego Sanchez, and as good as anybody, I guess, because it's kind of one of those topics in these subjects, man. But I think when you look at what the UFC is doing right now, and I think it's awesome that they're going and going to different places, any state that's open. Dana's basically saying you're opening up, we're rewarding you, and that's what Arizona's getting right now. And the last couple times I was here, I'm out in front with a big cage set up doing radio shows, and we'll be doing our MMA Weekly shows out there, guys. Be out there all week. I live here. Hunter lives here. It's unbelievable. And then Vegas right after that. So I'm really excited about that. Want to say good morning to everybody in the chat as well. Hope your Monday is going really well so far. And Jeff, yeah, I mean, look, from what I see, and this is where I'm treading carefully on this because, look, I don't have a dog in the fight. And I really honestly don't care about, Joshua Fabia. And I really don't care what fighters do in their private lives. I really don't care who they hire, who they have as a coach, who they have as a guru. This guy's definitely batshit crazy. I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this because I'm kind of deep in both worlds. I'm deep in the world of MMA, obviously, and I'm deep in the world of, personal growth and development. And I MC events where I introduced world-class inspirational speakers to the stage. And, this guy is not a world-class inspirational speaker. He doesn't seem like much of a guru. What he seems like, Jeff, is a batshit crazy dude who lives in the side of a rock who preys on an athlete at his lowest point. And that's what everybody sees. Now, keep in mind, that's what I said it seems like. Nobody knows the inner workings. People are saying everything from it's his lover, it's guys taking advantage of him. But I do know this. Diego the Dream, Diego the Nightmare Sanchez, right? This dude has shown up and shown out every single fight since The Ultimate Fighter. He's a kid from the Burque, Albuquerque, New Mexico, who made it up the hard way. He struggled. Yeah, same type of situation. These dudes had to scrap and fight and claw and just literally every single thing this guy's earned, every punch he's taken, every kick he's eaten, every time he's been blasted. Jeff, all these things add up. So when you've been fighting all those years and you've been taking that many shots, and Diego's been in some wars. I mean, the fight with Clay Guida's a Hall of Famer. The fight with Melendez will probably be a Hall of Fame fight one day, too. I was there in Houston on the Cain JDS 3 card. What a card that was. Sanchez and Melendez threw down, if you remember. And those things all add up. They take their toll. There's a cumulative effect of all those punches and everything that's going on now, which is why we're going to talk about Dominic Reyes in a few minutes. And these last couple of fights, that dude may have done permanent damage or had permanent damage done to him by the beatings he's taken from Blachowicz and now Yuri Prochazka, who, by the way, amazing. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But the thing I want to say about Sanchez and this dude, Joshua, is that he's creating a problem where there isn't one for Diego. And that's, to me, the most obvious thing. You can talk about he's crazy, whether he's a cult leader. Did he brainwash Diego? Does he have access to his financials? Diego was going through a divorce and he was vulnerable. And then all of a sudden, this guy's his only cornerman and he's not even a real coach. And, it's like they're sending out naked selfies together. And it's just weird, right? The whole thing's weird. But all that being said, Jeff, the one thing that stands out the most here is that there was not an issue between Diego Sanchez and the UFC. Dana White loves him. This dude is creating a huge issue where there wasn't one, and the one getting fucked is Diego Sanchez. The UFC doesn't care. They just move on. He's done. Diego Sanchez is the one that's going to feel this, and I just don't understand what anybody's doing from his side. It makes no sense.
Well, I mean, Diego put out as far as Josh goes, I think he's just telling Diego what he wants to hear. If you watch that video that Diego put out on Instagram, it's about 10 minutes long. It's kind of rambling a little bit. But like Diego's in a weird place right now. The UFC's out to get him. Once I'm cut, they aren't going to do anything for me. Sean Shelby and Dana, that letter or the email was sent by them, but they didn't sign it. Only Hunter Campbell signed it. And so he's saying some outlandish shit. And then he's like, once I'm cut, I'm not going to get anything from the UFC. And so he's got this guy in his ear. And first of all, Diego was compensated for that fight. Diego was compensated his show money, his win money, and his sponsorship money. The fight that never took place. Diego has been paid for every fight he's fought.
And the UFC never does that.
17 years. No.
When's the last time they've ever done that? Never.
None.
They never do it.
No, that's just being nice to Diego, man, because they could have cut him and just, Diego went through the training camp. He talks about in the video. He traveled, went to American Top Team, and he did his full training camp, and then they pulled the fight. And so the UFC, out of just kindness, really, and loyalty to Diego, decided to pay him everything and then cut him from his contract. That's more than they do for almost anyone. But right now, I gotta be honest, man. I'm worried about where Diego is, because you look at the signs of what scares the hell out of all professional fighters in combat sports and football players with the head trauma, and Diego is exuding those exact symptoms. He's paranoid. He doesn't trust anybody. His social network has come down to one person. He's isolated. We need to. And I'm not a doctor, man, and I don't claim to be, but I've been around the sport for a long time, and you start to see signs in people, right? People are different, just all of a sudden the damage that you've taken just adds up. And Diego, man, I'm worried about Diego, and I'll say that as a fight fan. I'm worried about Diego Sanchez. The Fabia stuff is just so bizarre and crazy, but I think it's a sign of something bigger, and I mean that. And then and he's talking about he wanted all the medicals from the UFC in his 16 or 17 years there fighting. Well, Diego, they're your medicals. You should have them. And so who's in his head acting like somebody's hiding his medicals from him? And then he's like, I want money later. And he wouldn't. Yeah. The email that he answered to, he wouldn't admit to what that he's not suffering from these things. And look, if you're a fighter and you can't admit that you're not suffering from neurological side effects of the fight game, then man, nobody's going to put you in there. And that's the bottom line. And Diego's framing it as the UFC's trying to protect themselves. The UFC doesn't have to protect themselves. Diego's never an employee of the UFC. Diego is a contract labored fighter who has agreed contractually to fight this 32 times in the UFC and was paid every single time. So the UFC's lived up to their contractual obligations to Diego Sanchez. What Diego's talking about is, I don't know, which is what got Hunter such a red flag to the UFC. Is what's Diego trying to do? Is Diego going to try to sue us for long-term effects of his choice as an adult to be a professional fighter? And so this is all crazy. And so it takes me back to the people that's in Diego's head, right? Because Diego's a damn warrior, dude.
And he's in his head. Yeah, I mean, name 3 fighters in the UFC, underdog type dudes, took the long circuitous route to get there, just beat every odd in the world. Who has identified with that story more? The everyman, the underdog, the guy who every time he walked to the octagon, every fan's in there with him. Diego Sanchez, every single time, Jeff, gave us everything he had. Every single time he gave us a show. every single time you felt like you were going in there with him. He's one of those fighters who always made you feel like you were walking right with him, step for step, side by side. And that's a unique gift that very few fighters possess. Diego Sanchez has it in spades. From the time he was a kid, he was at Jackson Wink with Jackson and Winklejohn. And let me just say this. There are a lot of people in the media, and I say media in air quotes, Jeff's working on me. I'm a little jaded. I'm an old school broadcast journalism major who's a little cynical about most of the assholes who call themselves journalists these days. But, Jeff, when I think about this, and I think about what people are saying and writing about Jackson and Wink, be careful, man. Be careful, because you don't know if they've reached out. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Just because people aren't going public with their support of Diego Sanchez doesn't mean they're not trying to help him. So that said, Jeff, let me ask you this very pointed question, and it's a fair question. You heard the audio, and if you didn't, go to Diego Sanchez Instagram and check it out. Do you think Hunter Campbell did anything wrong on that phone call? Were you surprised at all by the inner workings, by the way he spoke? And let me give you a quick quote for those of you who didn't watch it. So basically, here's what Hunter, and part of what Hunter said to Joshua Fabia. The direct quote I received was, you stated that the, quote, long-term effects of Diego being an MMA fighter were your basis for requesting it. And Jeff, I don't know if you're typing or whatever, but I don't know. I hear that coming out over the show. So I went through this with former UFC fighter Mark Hunt. That's Campbell. And here's the reality. If you're concerned, or Diego's concerned, that he's having negative effects, then we're not going to fight him, and I'm going to pull the fight right now, and we're going to call it a day, and we'll release him, and he can go do something else with his life, because I'm not putting anybody in that cage who doesn't feel 100% or thinks they're suffering from any medical issues. So what it seemed like to me is that Fabia was, kind of, inferring that Diego has long-term damage, and it's almost like he's setting up a lawsuit to the UFC's head lawyer in this fucking conversation. He's not that bright. I mean, didn't it sound to you like he's basically setting up a lawsuit or teasing one, or the overtone of a threatening nature of some sort of that? And then Hunter Campbell came back with what I just said, and I don't think Hunter Campbell, I thought he handled himself beautifully on that call.
He did his job as the UFC lawyer. No, I don't think that he did anything wrong at all. And look, whenever you hear Diego's, video that he put out on Instagram, he says that the UFC is trying to bully me to where I give up my future, rights and relinquish them from any liability. When you start using language like that, and in the video, he actually gets coached by somebody off camera to use the word liability. So absolutely, that's what he's trying to do. And look, and then at the end of the video, like I said, there's things that really huge red flags to me. Diego's talking about this is $1 billion company, and I'm going up against them, and I'm speaking my truth. Look, man, that's some Cunanan shit. You've gone off the deep end on conspiracies, Diego. There's no conspiracy. You signed up to be on the inaugural season of The Ultimate Fighter. You won that thing. You got a huge fan base. Everybody likes Diego Sanchez. At the tail end of his career, he has a guy who's advising Diego to, you need to get what you can. You need to get what you look. Diego's got what he could, right? He's had a long career in the UFC. We all know what the damages are. Now, do I, and I'm not insensitive to the fighter plight, man. That there's many subjects that I could go on about that the established the organizations might not like, but the fighters would. But that's a different subject, man. What Diego and them are trying to do is basically get his long-term medicals covered by the UFC because he fought in the UFC. Well, Diego, you also fought in King of the Cage. You also fought in other organizations, and so why aren't they just as liable? Nobody's liable for Diego's plight right now. Diego was a grown man. He signed the contracts. He knew we all know what the risks are. We aren't living in the 70s and 80s, the pre-CTE world, right? We know exactly what goes on now. And so I don't feel like you get to play that card. And I don't think that Diego, like I said, I'm just worried about Diego because all of this is just drama. The real issue is Diego Sanchez is going through some shit right now. And we need to get him the help and the attention that he needs because I didn't like what I saw in that video. I don't like having to be coached on what to say off camera. I don't like the rambling nature of it. I didn't like the conspiracy nature of it, the paranoid nature of it, the isolated nature of it. Scares the shit out of me, Jim. For someone that knew Diego before the Ultimate Fight, we covered Diego, when he was in King of the Cage, and when he came to the Ultimate Fighter, and to see where Diego
King of the
is
Cage
now,
champion. Crazy. He fought Shannon Rich, Shannon the Cannon, in his third pro fight at middleweight. Can you imagine those two even fighting? That's crazy when you look back at his record. And, I look back, Jeff, I look at the BJ Penn fight, and I remember the doctor stopped that one. There was a Lozon fight, Matt Brown, Raging Al. Those are the guys who have finished Diego Sanchez in the octagon. And he's been battered in the Melendez fight, the Clay Guida fight. And his last win was against Mikel Pereira. And I was there. That was in Albuquerque, Rio Rancho. And that wasn't a win. That was a DQ on an illegal knee that gave Diego the win. He was getting his ass beat really badly in that fight. And then before that, he lost. I was there at UFC 239, the Jones Santos Holm Nunes card. And he lost a decision to Michael Chiesa, who's now in the news because Kamaru Usman somehow thinks he should fight Michael Chiesa for the belt, and Ali. And good Lord, I don't know, obviously he's got the longest winning streak. But anyway, point being, the Chiesa fight, you thought to yourself, wow, okay, Diego might still be able to get it done and fight on a high level because Chiesa is a very good fighter. And that was just in 2019. Diego still draws. They had him as the co-main in Albuquerque. And Dana, as you mentioned, loves this dude. How do you not? So Diego Sanchez has 43 pro fights. He's 30-13. His first one was Michael Johnson. Can you believe that? I don't even know if it's the same Michael Johnson. That's June 21st, 2002 in Denver. He's fought in Mexico, Jeff. This is literally a guy who has come up and fought everyone, anytime, any place. He's a huge fan favorite. Everybody loves him. And I want to add something here, okay? Because I was there in Albuquerque for those fights, and I did interviews at Media Day. I was one of about 5 people there. I was the only one there doing interviews. It was probably, like no one showed up, no schmo, no anybody. It was just me. I interviewed whoever I want, whenever I wanted. I was the only one there doing interviews. So anyway, this is last February, right? Right before the whole COVID thing shut everybody down. And that was when Jan beat Anderson and knocked him out in the main event to really, people are like, holy shit, Blachowicz is a title contender. Well, Sanchez was on that card against Pereira getting battered in the co-main event. Anyway, that day on Media Day, I met Joshua Fabia. So here I am in Albuquerque doing interviews. I live in Arizona, drove out there 6 hours, 5 hours, whatever, to do a show with Michelle Watterson on location. And by the way, I'm going to do an interview with Michelle this week as she's the main event this Saturday, and you'll catch that here on MMA Weekly. But I didn't detect anything, man. Like when Joshua Fabia was very nice. He shook my hand. He thanked me. He even took the pictures. So if you see any pictures from my cell phone on Instagram of me interviewing Diego, Josh took those. And everything seemed cool. He seemed like a really good dude. Everybody was happy. Diego was loving being, the center of attention in his hometown. But man, I guess we didn't read anything into this beforehand, Jeff, because people change teams, people change gyms, coaches, and he split with Jackson Wink as Cowboy Cerrone did. But they took him from being a kid, Jeff, a high school kid, and everywhere he went, he should have been with them for life. Whatever happened in that relationship, he should have been with them for life. And I don't know if you guys, I'm hearing some background noise. Somebody's watching something, or computers are making noises or something, so someone's mic's hot. But I think about this, Jeff. Diego Sanchez, you're worried about the person now. You're worried about him ending up broke. You're worried about him ending up in the streets on drugs, whatever the case may be, because without real guidance and without structure of the sport, that sport has saved him in so many ways. Once that's gone, man, we've seen this story before, and I'm just keeping my hands together praying for Diego Sanchez that this doesn't happen to him.
Yeah, look, Diego the fighter's over, right? I mean, it was over even before this fight got canceled. That we were in the very last days of Diego Sanchez as a fighter. We knew that. Diego knew that. He says that's why he chose this moment to kind of make this stand, or a stand against the UFC as he sees it in his mind. Look, I'm not worried about Diego Sanchez the fighter, man. Those days are over. Diego has a legendary career. He's in the UFC. I'm worried about Diego the person. I'm worried about, we know what happens. We know what happens. We know the road ahead. If Diego's suffering from what I think that he's suffering from, man, it's a terror. It's a tragedy. Like it's just one of the tragedies of the combat sports, and we see it. But instead of everybody jumping on Fabio and trying to ask, Jackson Wink, why aren't you doing anything? And all this, why don't we just get Diego help? And we'll worry about all that bullshit later, all that drama. You can point fingers later. Let's not point fingers while Diego's out here thinking that the world's against him and the UFC's trying to screw him. And and we're all kind of working against him behind the scenes, and the commentators are against him. I mean, that video that they posted up from UFC from the Abu Dhabi with the Jake Matthews loss, where they're in the fighters meeting with the production company, with the
Oh my
production
God.
team. And Fabia's just sitting there going, like, y'all are being disrespectful. Dude, it's their job to call the fight. And if your fighter's getting his ass kicked, then that's their job. If you tell your fighter after he got completely destroyed in round 1 that he won the round, the commentators are going to say, wow, I don't agree with that. And so the audacity of this guy, the friggin' audacity for him to do that is crazy to me. And then he spills out in the hall where he's arguing. He's not arguing, but he's having a pointed discussion with Anik about it. Felder didn't take kindly to it.
I was just going to say, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I love Paul Felder. He's one of my favorites. Love him. As an interview, as a commentator, he's great.
Yeah, do I think that Fabio's trying to insert himself into the sport through Diego? Yep. Do I think he's using Diego to try to make a name for himself? Yep. But Diego is a grown man. And we can't control who Diego tries to keep around him. I just want people who've been in Diego's life. And I saw that John Jones urged him to get away from Fabia, and he heard other fighters come out and do it. Look, get this guy checked out. Get him checked out and see what's going on with Diego. Because that's not the Diego I interviewed before the BJ Penn title fight. That's not the Diego I interviewed after the Ultimate Fighter. That's not the Diego that came on to our shows. That's just not. That is a different person. And that is a different person who seems scared to me. You know what I mean? Who's trying to figure, he knows, Diego knows, man. You can look at it. You can look at him and see he's setting this up because he knows there's going to be future medical issues. He knows there is. And he's trying to set this up to where he isn't financially crippled by that. And so I'm not worried about the financially crippling of it, because I do believe that the fight game will take care of Diego one way or another, even if it's through, GoFundMe and fans and stuff. I think that Diego will be taken care of as far as that goes. But that doesn't.
Dana would always take care of him. Dana would give him his own money. He's that type of dude. I hear that, one of my buddies, and I won't say his name because I can't say his name, but one of my buddies works very closely with Dana, and I got tight with this dude last summer, and he tells me all the time the shit that Dana White does that no one sees, the generosity and sending fighters money. Someone's kid sick as an employee, and all of a sudden they get a bunch of cash. And, Dana White would have taken care, and still might, by the way, take care of Diego Sanchez. And I want to read something from Dana White here in a second. But first, I want to read something from Rashad Evans, because
it was Rashad I was thinking
Diego
about
over the years. And Rashad, his training partner. Yes. So Diego, the UFC gave you a chance to compete as long as you did because they actually cared about you. You were the original tough champ, and they took care of you for that. You messed around and let that con artist, Josh Fabia, use you to try to get a lawsuit against the UFC. They sensed it because it was obvious that your manager/coach was about to get litigious. Nice word, Rashad. I wish you the best, my friend, but you must, in capital letters, get this guy out of your life. He is a parasite. That's on Rashad Evans' Instagram.
Yeah, and look, I apologize. When I said John Jones spoke out, I actually meant Rashad and not Jones, although Jones may have said
okay, yeah.
But that's what I was referencing was Rashad. Look, I think that Fabio is a problem, but I think that it's a smaller problem to a bigger issue here. Why is Diego have him around? Why is Diego entertaining these crazy notions? We need to get to Diego. Screw Fabio and forget the fighting and all that. We need to try to reach Diego. And figure out what his needs are and address them. And like I said, I'm not worried about the fight game not taking care of Diego. I think Diego will be taken care of medically. I think the UFC will get him the research that he needs and everything that he needs. The UFC has ties with tons of head trauma clinics and stuff, and it's kind of just part of it. I think that the network's in place to get Diego the help that he needs. But I think that we all have to stop looking the other way and avoiding the question. I think that Diego has suffered some brain issues. And that's the ugly secret that people don't want to talk about in this sport. But Diego's exuding those he's showing those signs, and we can't ignore it. For us to ignore this, and it's God forbid something happened later, it's our fault now. I think that Diego's reaching, he's almost crying for help in a way. Fabia is taking advantage of that and using that to try to benefit himself. But at the end of the day, for Diego to be doing what he's doing right now is so out of character for Diego Sanchez. And it tells me, and look, I'm not a psychologist, but it tells me that Diego's scared to death and he's reaching out. He's crying out for help. And instead of blaming Wink and blaming Fabia and doing the things that we all do in the media and in the sport, just in life, we probably should just singularly focus on Diego for a minute. Forget everything else. Who gives a damn why Fabia is there? Who gives a damn about his UFC past and his legacy and all that? Let's make sure Diego gets to go into his later years comfortably and mentally sane and mentally capable and physically capable of being a person. And that right there, that is where I am right now. I'm worried about Diego's future as a human being. I'm worried about Diego's mental state. I'm worried about the long-term damage that may have been done through the fight game. And look, when I say through the fight game, look, you get your ass kicked more in the gym than you do inside the cage, right? And so any athlete,
no doubt,
and so all the damage that you're suffering is not the responsibility of a fight promotion. It's not the responsibility of the sport. You are doing this voluntarily on a daily basis in a gym, and you're taking that's where you're getting the damage for the most part.
That's what Jamie Varner and I used to talk about that for hours, man. All the sparring that he did, the Lallies at Arizona Combat Sports, you were sparring hard every single day. It was like fights in there, legitimate. Yeah. The sparring was like a real fight. And that's where Bader started and where Aaron Simpson and CB Dollaway and Jamie Varner and all those guys. And, eventually they toned it down because the sparring, Jeff, and that's a great point, they're a lot more worried about CTE from the cumulative effects of sparring. And Diego Sanchez came up in that era where if you didn't in the gym, you know what I mean? That was, and it was like, yo, this dude's the man. He spars full on with everybody. And it was some sort of a badge of toughness. But I will say this, man, how do I even go? Diego Sanchez is a true legend of the game. Jackson and Wink found him when he was a kid. And he's not only an incredible fighter and a great history, an OG, Jeff, but Diego Sanchez is a nice guy, man. And you know him better than I do. So I know he's a nice guy. He's one of our sponsors in common a couple years ago, Bio Accelerator. He gets the stem cells down in Medellin, Colombia, and Masvidal's down there and the Pitbulls and Cejudo and all these fighters go down there and they get these stem cells. Well, Diego was one of their first guys. And they were going to have me interview him at Fight Week in 2019 for them. And it ended up being where we couldn't, make it work. And Diego was all over the place that week. And he went into the Hall of Fame for the Guida fight. But he is a very, very nice dude. And the one thing I want to say that stands out about Sanchez, and then we got to move on to another topic after we get our final thoughts here. And we'd like yours in the chat as well. But literally, Isaac Marquez, Jeff, everyone knows the story. Isaac Marquez is what I think about when I think of Diego. Obviously the original Ultimate Fighter, he could take a beating and come back and win fights, and he just gave it everything he had every single time, all heart. That's number one. But this man, if you guys don't remember what he did for Isaac Marquez, the guy with Down syndrome, whose dream and almost like a Make-A-Wish type thing was to compete in a real mixed martial arts bout. And then the kid's mother had died, dedicated the fight to his mother. And it says, Diego said at the time, he said, hey, most Down syndrome adults don't live past 45. Isaac is 32, and I just wanted to see him be healthy. So he got him training mixed martial arts because he says that's one of the most healthy things you can do. Well, then Diego decided to have a match against him at one of the Jackson Wink fights out there. They had their own fight nights, and Sanchez was armbarred by Marquez, first round submission. And it was one of the most amazing stories I've ever covered. One of the most amazing things that I've seen any fighter do for anyone. That's Diego Sanchez. That's what I think of.
Yeah, look, Diego's a nice guy, man. We've been around Diego through the years. We've interviewed him a ton of times. Diego's accessible and he's nice and he's charitable and he's open with his time, or he's generous with his time to fans and media. But yeah, I just feel like I really feel like when I read the stories and I see all the commentary on Diego right now that we're not focusing enough on Diego. I don't know. We really have, in my opinion, Diego's the first active fighter to start acting this way. And we can't ignore it. We do owe him that. The UFC doesn't owe Diego anything. The sport doesn't owe Diego anything. But I'm just saying, as human beings, and we probably owe Diego at least getting him in the doctors that could diagnose if he actually does have problems. And like I said, I'm not a doctor, man. I'm not a doctor. I'm a concerned journalist, and I'm a concerned fan after watching it, and seeing how he's done it, and his last fight. I'll be honest, in his last fight, even the one before that, he's just not acting like he's a different person, and that scares the hell out of me. And I don't want Diego to be one of those stories, and right now he's headed fast down that path of being a tragic story in the sport of in combat sports, and we see it. We see it. I just don't want it to happen to him. I don't want it to happen to anybody, but I definitely don't want it to happen to Diego. Diego's a pioneer, man, and Diego. When you look at Diego's career, Diego just out-willed people, right? I mean, a lot of times he was equally matched skill-wise, but he won those fights on just sheer willpower, sheer guts and determination and just refusal to lose. And I think that's what everybody related to Diego. Diego, man, was no easy out for anybody. You were going to friggin' war when you fought Diego Sanchez. And now that we've enjoyed Diego's legendary, UFC Hall of Fame career, I don't want the fingers being pointed, man. Jackson and Wink will do what they need to do. Diego's got a lot of friends in this industry, man. He's been around a long time. I mean, I don't want to point the fingers. I'm not, Diego's trying to point the fingers at the UFC. The UFC's trying to point the fingers at Fabia. Fabia's pointing the fingers at Diego's past history. Then fans are pointing the fingers at Jackson Winklejohns, all while Diego's sitting over here saying, dude, there's a problem and nobody's addressing it. And so I want to address it. That's what I want. I just want Diego to get in, have some CT scans, have talk to somebody, sit him down, do an evaluation, and then if we find something wrong, get it fixed. And if we don't find anything wrong, pat him on his back, say congratulations, we figured out there's nothing wrong with you. You do just have an asshole in your ear. But I'm not sure that that's the problem right now. I'm not sure. Fabio's the problem, don't get me wrong. But Diego allows that to be a problem. And so why is Diego allowing that to be a problem? Maybe Diego isn't of sound mind to make these decisions right now. And I think, and look, I hate saying that shit. Yeah, I hate saying that shit. I mean, it's not easy for me to say. I mean, I'm almost surprised I don't get emotional about it because I don't like seeing this happen to fighters. And it doesn't happen to a lot of fighters. But when it does, the reaction's all the same. Everybody scatters like rats on a sinking boat, to distance themselves from it. And I would like for us to do the opposite in this case and move towards the problem and see if we can help Diego Sanchez. And that goes for everybody. That I'm not singling anybody out. But if Diego won't admit that he's got a problem, but it looks like in his videos that he is admitting to it. He wouldn't respond to the email the way they wanted to. He will not admit that he's not experiencing neurological issues. And look, man, if a fighter's not going to admit he's not experiencing neurological issues, newsflash, he's experiencing neurological issues. Because to admit so is career suicide. And he just admitted so. And so Diego's career's over. And so now that we can, now that everybody's not worried about making money off Diego and selling Diego's fights and having Diego at an autograph signing and a Q&A and everything, let's just get friggin' Diego fixed, and all the fighters should rally around that shit. Everybody should rally around that. Diego paves roads for a lot of people, and everybody in the community needs to be pushing for us to get him the help that he needs, because guess what? He's not going to be the only one, Jim. There's going to be another one. There's going to be another one. And how we address Diego is
we need a fund, man. We need a fund.
Well,
we need a fund somewhere for retired fighters who have taken beatings. There should be some sort of a fund. People should be, putting into it. If a percentage has to come out of every event, every bit of fighter pay, every profit that the organization makes, there has to be money put away somewhere as these events are happening. And there's so much money now, Jeff. There has to be a fund for these guys and girls. There has to be a fund, because you're going to see so many fighters broken down, old, broke, not living their lives, and it's going to be a bad look for the UFC. They need some sort of a pension fund. There has to be some sort of a pension fund somewhere. Someone's got to make one and create one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even worried about the money. You know, I mean, there's 1,000,001 people were rich one day and broke the next. You know, I'm talking. I mean, I
But
would
for
like
care,
for there to
medical
be,
care and mental
yeah,
care,
yeah. I would like something to be and evaluations, regular evaluations.
evaluations. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Most important
you've
one,
been out of the sport.
evaluations.
Yeah, you've been out of the sport for 3 years, but we would still like to call you in and talk to you and do some and do like a medical, like you were going to have a fight, and then just to kind of see where we are instead of throwing people to the wayside. But yeah, I just want look. I'd rather be broke and have my brain than rich and be drooling out, you know, and thinking that everybody's out to get me and I'm this paranoid trip the entire time. Man, that's not living. And that's what I saw with Diego. Man, that video is alarming. I mean, when you look at it and actually hear what Diego's saying and then and kind of how he rambles a little bit, and he pauses a lot, and then the words don't come to him. And anybody that's interviewed Diego in the past, that's not Diego. That scared the hell out of me, Jim. And I'm not gonna act like it didn't.
Yeah,
You know, and
it
I'm not
did.
gonna
Yep.
act like but I'm also not gonna act like this is the UFC's fault. This isn't the UFC's fault. This isn't really Diego's fault. This is just life, man. I mean, shit, it happens, right? We think it's never going to happen to us. I smoke. I know everybody dies of lung cancer, right? I just convinced myself it's not going to happen to me. But guess what? I'm going to die of lung
16
cancer.
years in the UFC,
Yeah.
Jeff. That's 16 years of punches and kicks and training and hard sparring. I mean, he's got some issues to deal with, without a doubt, and an all-time great, fan favorite. Everyone loves Diego Sanchez for the most part. And, you know, I've seen people in the chat, they're gay lovers. Diego was going through a divorce and this guy moved in, you know, and all these things, and they're naked in these pictures. And he's training people by, you know, chasing around. First of all, who the hell cares if it's gay or not? But if they are in a personal relationship like that, obviously that changes everything in terms of Diego's, you know, listening to him and people saying, why is Diego being controlled by this guy? I thought Dana said it really well too. And Bisping, of course, leave it to Bisping. And here's Bisping on his Instagram. He's an absolute legend of the game, and I have the utmost respect, but I can't stand to see this manipulative little prick meddling in Diego's affairs and ultimately costing him his position in the company, playing games with medical clearance, and utter fool. Dana White said that, you know, literally he called him batshit nuts. And Dana talked about basically how much that he loves Diego Sanchez and he hopes he's okay. But and here's Dana. And this quote from Dana: "One of the sad things that happens, not just in fighting, but in sports, and I want you to quote me on this, are these creepy weirdos who come from God knows where and leech on to fighters or athletes. They never do any good for them." And someone in the chat mentioned Brian Wilson, that guy Eugene Landy, that fake therapist that everybody, you know, the singer of the Beach Boys, was manipulated by somebody like that. You see all the time, like the head of Scientology or David Koresh in the Branch Davidian. Mm-hmm. You see all these wacky people getting all these followers. Fabia guy's kind of like that, or he fancies himself to be kind of like that.
Yeah, but it's desperation, right? I mean, it's desperate. Who's the guy that Jim Carrey played, the comedian who passed away of cancer, and but before
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman. Andy got with all those gurus. Yeah, but Andy got with all those gurus and shit, you know, and all that stuff. It's out of desperation, right? Andy had cancer, stage 4 cancer. He isn't going to cure it. And so what does he do? He hangs on to hope and goes to people who will sell him anything, hoping for a miracle. And so I feel like, and look, if Diego's having a relationship with this guy, there's nothing more irrelevant to the situation. The only way that that's relevant is Diego shouldn't let somebody that close to him be this involved in the business side. That's the only thing I'll say about that. If Diego wants to have a boyfriend, then fine.
A meddling spouse. This wouldn't be the first or last time if it was a personal relationship, significant other meddling. I mean, obviously that. And this guy's telling Diego, "Don't worry, you got these guys $100 million lawsuit." I mean, I'm speculating, but I think that's what's going on here. And you're right. You said it early in the conversation, Jeff. You hit the nail right on the head, dude, like you always do. This is a setup for a future lawsuit based on the cumulative effects of his fighting career. That, to me, is exactly what that phone call sounded like with Hunter Campbell from Josh Fabia's standpoint. And I think Hunter Campbell knew that. And I think he mentioned Mark Hunt for that reason, Mark Hunt's lawsuit, right? And look, I mean, NFL players, fighters, I used to talk to my guys all the time. I knew Ray Lewis really well in college. I used to hang out with Ray Lewis, and I met him driving him to a TV show I was an intern for. And I used to talk to him about, man, are you worried about concussions? Are you worried about long-term effects? He's like, no, man, you play the game you love, you worry about it later. And that's what everybody does in that situation for the most part. You know, TJ Grant, for example, had to walk away because of the concussions, and he was a title contender. Think about what this has done in sports and what it's done in football. Junior Seau, for God's sake, one of the greatest guys I've ever met in my career. I used to cover every sport, and I had a national show, but before I did, I was in Miami covering the Dolphins, and I did the Dolphins pregame and postgame, covered them for years, and it was one of the best experiences of my career. Well, one of the reasons it was the best experience of my career, because it's always about the athletes for me, right, and the people. Junior Seau was there at 5 a.m. every day making coffee, always had a smile on his face. Hey, buddy, nicest guy in the room everywhere he went. Ended up trying to kill himself multiple times before purposely driving his car off a cliff and ending his own life because of CTE. So it hits close to home for me and for a lot of people in sports, and we have not seen CTE and the effects of it long term on fighters yet because of the relativity and how new this sport is. We're gonna see it. You're gonna see fighters not know where they are when they get older. You're gonna see fighters who are unable to talk and unable to communicate. You're gonna see fighters who are badly damaged from CTE in the future. And Diego Sanchez, to me, I'm just hoping he doesn't end up as a statistic, and he's able to live a happy. He's got kids, man. Live a happy and healthy life. He's done fighting. He shouldn't fight anymore. Anybody who offers this guy a contract, they should literally be put in front of a tribunal at this point. Jeff?
Hello.
Jeff's frozen in time. There he is. He's back. There you are, Jeff.
Yeah, no athletic commission should sanction Diego to fight. You know, considering the videos that he puts out and the rhetoric that he's saying, and the admission or the of long-term effects. I don't think that you can give him a fight, and I hope nobody does. Now the Mark Hunt situation is totally different, because Mark Hunt got thrown in there with at least 2 fighters that tested positive for banned substances. What they fought him while he was in banned substances, and so I felt like Mark Hunt's argument was the athletic commissions and shit aren't doing their job, and failed to protect me. I feel like that's a different angle than what Diego is doing. Neither one of them are going to work, or not in my mind. But like I said, I think it's a cry for help, and I think that we should hear him. You know, because to be a Diego whisperer, Diego's saying that I'm suffering from some effects. I don't want but I still want to fight because I need the money. But I don't want to jeopardize me not being able to be compensated later in a potential lawsuit for the damages that I'm suffering from. And that scares the hell out of me, man. That scares the hell out. To me, Diego's admitted that he has a problem. And Fabio has given Diego his remedy to fix the problem, which is apparently sue the UFC. My remedy to fix the problem isn't that. It's just to get help, is to get him with the specialist. Yeah. Because look, you're right. CTE is pretty new. We're doing tests on it every day. We're working with people. Some people are improving incredibly through therapies and stuff. Hockey players have it. This isn't a combat sports problem. This is a sports problem across the board. But like you said, all these athletes, you just accept it. A race car driver knows the effects. You know that if you escape tragedy on the track, you're still going to have those injuries from the crashes and the back injuries and the neck injuries and the broken limbs and everything. And fighters know the same thing, man. Mountain climbers know the same damn thing, right? Well, I know, I know the risk whenever I do stupid. Now, I don't want to say stupid shit, but whenever I do risky stuff, I know the risk, and you just accept it, put it in the back of your mind, and go on. But right now, we as a community, I feel like, have an opportunity here to set a precedent on how we are going to deal with these types of situations when they arise in the future. And to continue to put down Diego is not right now. That's what I mean. Everybody's putting down Diego, and they're throwing out all these, conspiracies and innuendos and just outright allegations. And I feel like you're further isolating Diego. And instead of doing that, I feel like that's the last damn thing we need to do right now. We're going to push Diego to a point where we don't need to be pushing him. We need to embrace Diego. We need to embrace him and ask him, what the hell do you need? What do you want? What are you trying after here? What's going to make you happy, Diego? And instead of getting it through this manager who's this, second party, secondhand information shit, let's just go straight to Diego and figure out what we need to do to deal with Diego. And quit making fun of him and saying this is a gay lover. Who gives a damn if it's a gay lover? Who gives a damn if he has 10 gay lovers? Who cares? None of that's all of that is irrelevant. If Jackson and Wink reached out to him, irrelevant. Whether or not the UFC helps him, irrelevant. Only thing relevant to me right now is Diego Sanchez okay? And if he's not, can we help him? And if we can't help him, what are our options? That's where I am right now. Everything else is just noise, just white noise in the background.
There you go. And here's what the book.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
No, I just feel like all of us, not really us, but I mean that most people are just feeding to that background noise and not addressing the problem. Not we're doing everything we can to avoid the pink elephant in the room. The pink elephant in the room is, man, Diego might have brain damage.
Diego might have brain damage. And the Butcher says in the chat, let's read some of these chats, Jeff. Fabia has installed a victim mentality in Diego. What a shame. And I would agree with that. Actually, good job, Butcher. Mark Frosty says Diego is a part of UFC forever. With all the issues, they should give a hand to Diego. He deserved it for F's sake, and I agree. I think Dana White agrees too. Molo Vision says, I'd like to say Fabia might make a good life coach, just not an MMA coach. There you go. Master of the obvious there, but just seems like a toxic con artist is Molo Vision. And then let's see, Josh Bailey at the same time, he's installing the victim's mentality. Jamie Lee, there looks like more than just friends, but UFC is a money machine. They don't care about mental health. I think they care more than you think they care. It's bad PR too. Let's not forget that. Even if you accuse them of being the ultimate in greed and only caring about things from their perspective, the UFC does not want a bunch of older fighters walking around aimlessly, not knowing where they are, sipping meals through a straw. Trust me, that's horrible PR, and that's horrible for the business long term. And then Dragonheart613 says, amen, comparing Fabia to Scientology. Scientology is one of the biggest gang of con artists ever. Scientology is a cult, plain and simple. They ruined beloved stars like Tom Cruise. Just ask Leah Remini about them, right? This brain damage thing is hella annoying. I hope in the future there are good treatments to this. Yeah, especially if you have it, Josh. It would be hella annoying. Let's see. CTE cannot be detected until a person is dead. Pat Max. And then, Molo Vision. Fabio got to go. Just wish the UFC gave Diego a farewell fight. And this Cowboy Cerrone fight, I mean, let's be honest. Like Cowboy left Jackson Wink too. That fight was something that, as a longtime fan, Jeff, it's definitely, man, I don't know. I don't know if you're, Jeff, are you typing something?
I don't know what I'm doing.
I hear typing. I hear like Hunt and Peck one finger typing somewhere in the background. But, I mean, I'd like to see Diego get a farewell fight, but I'm sure the term would be without Fabia now. And if they feel like they're being walked into a lawsuit,
you can't touch it now. You can't touch him now.
Your final thoughts, Jeff, on Diego, because we only have about 10 minutes left and we got to get to a couple other things. But final thoughts.
Yeah, Diego's fighting career is over. You can't touch Diego right now. You can't give him a farewell fight. You can't put him in another organization. There's no leaving for Bellator or PFL or all that. Diego's fighting career is over. And now it's just a matter of and look, I can say the victim. I'm telling you that the victim attitude is a symptom. That is one of the symptoms. So while we can say he instilled this victim attitude, maybe he's just playing to it. Maybe he didn't instill it. Maybe he's just playing to it because Diego has it now, which would be a symptom. Look, like I said, I'm not a doctor, man, but I would want to get Diego checked out because he's just exuding brain damage symptoms left and right. And Fabia, yeah, man, he's a snake oil salesman. I don't even think he's a good, life coach or motivational speaker or whatever he is. He's batshit crazy. He's jumping into a sport he doesn't know anything about. He's running at fighters with knives and acting like that's training. And then anybody that doubts that, just go look at Diego's last fight. That shit was bizarre. I mean, and Diego's a guy who's been at huge training camps. He's been at American Top Team. He's been at Winklejohns. He's been at some of the best camps in the world. Diego knows this shit ain't going to work. So I don't know. Or if he doesn't, that's even bigger. That's even a bigger problem. And so I just want to get Diego evaluated and see what's going on with him. That's basically it before we end up with a problem. And look, the UFC is going to take care of Josh, right? I mean, they just won't work with people that work with Josh, and that's how that's going to work. I mean, the UFC will take care of Josh. Don't worry about him. He's going to be over here trying to find somebody else that'll listen to his bullshit, because that's what it is. It's just all bullshit. There's the music, Jim. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know about music. We still got to talk about this fight card from this weekend. Are we wrapping up?
I think so.
UFC fallout. There's a lot of fallout from this fight card. I thought we had an hour. Okay, so real quick, Jeff, let's wrap up this fight card. Yuri Prochazka with a dominating win over Dominic Reyes. You feel for Dominic Reyes. He's been beaten up pretty bad his last 2 times out. Giga Chikadze, a huge win. Jacoby really impressed me against Kutalaba. Strickland's only got 3 losses. That was a great win for him over Jotko. And Mirab and Stamen was a great fight, too. I thought the main card was fantastic. And obviously, Yuri is a big-time title contender. That was a war back and forth with Reyes. And Yuri Prochazka is an absolute beast and a force to be reckoned with in that division.
Yeah, Yuri put on a great performance. Scored a knockout of the year candidate. Now, I'm not saying that's going to get knocked out of the year. It's going to get honorable mention, though, because last week we had Rose Namajunas and Kamaru Usman score huge knockouts in title fights. But that was crazy. You don't see spinning back elbows very often. Yuri's a contender in that division. He's unorthodox, hard to deal with. It's going to be interesting to see how he does against the number 1 and 2 guys.
Yuri Prochazka with a dominating win. I wish we had more time to break it down and talk about it. We'll do that on Wednesday, I guess. We have our preview show for the May 8th card. It's a little bit of a lean card. Michelle Watterson and Marina Rodriguez, the former atomweight champ, the Karate Hottie, will be fighting at 125. And you got Donald Cerrone, hopefully on this card. They still haven't announced an opponent for him, but Jeff, there's a big one coming up this week. Gregor Gillespie, we'll see how he does against Carlos Diego Ferreira. And we'll be here 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern for UFC preview on Wednesday. And we'll talk a little bit more about the fallout in the light heavyweight division from this particular fight. On that day, I guess we'll pick this conversation up then. All right, that's Jeff Cain. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Whoa, hold on. I don't know what's going on here. Jim Grieshaber on it. That's really loud, guys. Jim Grieshaber on MMA Weekly. Call me Gries. That's Jeff Cain. I don't know what's going on here. They're playing me off the stage. Shut the hell up. Your speech